Hi, I'm Robbie Fletcher and welcome to my channel. This is my fourth video and the first in a new series called The Redemption Arc. Now what I want the Redemption Arc to be is something that gives us a chance to look at guys that haven't really lived up to the expectation for whatever reason when they entered the league. I think it's a good opportunity to see if these guys are still NBA caliber players, what they were before they came into the NBA, and what they are now. This is a series I intend on doing throughout the upcoming NBA season, and while there are a ton of guys that I think were really worthy candidates to kick this series off, I really couldn't think of anyone better than Jabari Parker. Now a member of the Boston Celtics, Jabari Parker's career has been all over the map for a variety of reasons, but the most logical place to start in this situation is at the beginning, when he was labeled the next great NBA prospect. So let's do that. Before ever stepping foot on the floor as a high school freshman, it was clear that Jabari Parker was a special kind of athlete. In just the 4th grade, Parker was deemed good enough to make his 8th grade team, though he wasn't allowed to play until the 5th grade. As early as that 5th grade season, Parker had already earned 5 D1 scholarship offers as a 6-foot guard. By the time Parker reached high school, he was 6'4" and already earning a reputation as one of the brightest young athletes in all of Chicago. Choosing to attend Simeon Career Academy, Parker made history by becoming the first freshman in the school's history to ever start on the varsity team. Considering this is a program that's seen NBA players like Derrick Rose, Nick Anderson, and Bobby Simmons sport the Simeon gold jersey, as well as high school legend Benji Wilson, it's clear that Parker was in a league of his own entering his first season. It didn't take long for Parker to turn into a full-fledged star at Simeon. Alongside Kendrick Nunn, Parker led the Wolverines to 4 state titles while becoming the 4th non-senior to ever win the Gatorade National Player of the Year award, while also collecting 2 Illinois Mr. Basketball honors. The hype around Jabari was unreal, with Sports Illustrated deeming him the best high school player since LeBron James. And though a foot injury in his senior season pushed him down to more of a top 5 recruit, appearances in the McDonald's All-American Game, the Jordan Brand Classic, and the Nike Hoop Summit further pushed the already massive buzz around him. After deciding on the Duke Blue Devils as his next stop before entering the NBA, the crown jewel of Mike Krzyzewski's recruiting class was hailed as the face of ACC basketball going into the 2013-14 season, with Parker earning preseason honors like being on the AP First Team All-American list and being named the preseason ACC Player of the Year. Parker easily lived up to those expectations, winning ACC Rookie of the Week a record-tying 10 times, while also being a consensus First Team All-American, ACC Rookie of the Year, and first-team All-ACC member after becoming the first Duke freshman to lead the team in scoring and rebounding with 19 points per game and 8.7 rebounds per game. Despite losing in the ACC championship and struggling in a wild first-round upset against Mercer, Parker's lottery pick aspirations were all but solidified. While Andrew Wiggins was shoehorned in as the top prize of the draft after an injury to Kansas big man Joel Embiid derailed his place as the nation's top prospect, Parker was locked in as a more than worthy consolation prize behind Wiggins. During the draft process, Parker earned favorable comparisons to Paul Pierce and Carmelo Anthony thanks to his elite athletic ability and strength, his size that could fit him as a big wing or a small power forward, and his killer step-back jumper. The biggest knocks on Parker at the time were his 3-point consistency and his overall defensive resume, though neither would be big enough issues to drop his stock past the 2nd pick, where the Milwaukee Bucks selected him. Going back and revisiting Jabari's high school and college tape is actually a really interesting experiment because I actually genuinely see the Carmelo and Paul Pierce comparisons. Especially with the Pierce comparison, Jabari had the size to be a true power forward, but the athleticism and handles to be a dominant wing, exactly like Paul Pierce. Add in his isolation scoring ability, and a lot of those shots from the elbows feel like something directly from the truth himself. Now the question that I'm sure is on everyone's mind is, did these comparisons hold up? And, No. Well, not really, but there were moments and even full season samples where it was looking like that actually might become the case. As early as his first year, Parker was already facing an uphill battle after tearing his ACL just 25 games into his inaugural season with the Bucks. While Parker was still acclimating to the improved level of play, he was actually starting to really gain some momentum in his last 10 games before the injury, averaging 13 points per game on 54% field goal percentage, with 4 straight games in double figures before getting hurt. Parker's defense and 25% three-point shooting both were still troublesome, but he for the most part did well as a scorer. His second season also started off tough, with Parker taking some time to recover from the injury and get back into game shape. Parker eventually really started to take off as a legitimate scoring option after the All-Star break though, averaging 19 points per game on 50% shooting in the last 28 games of the season. This success transitioned smoothly into year 3, easily the peak of his NBA career. When going back and watching his highlights in preparation for this video, these are the games that I think are the hardest to watch because he was truly starting to look like the scoring threat that he was expected to be when he was taken in the lottery. Averaging a stellar 20 points per game on a respectable 49% and an improved 36% from 3 on high volume, Parker was finally starting to look like the budding star the Bucks were hoping to pair next to Giannis before a second ACL tear in the same knee ended his season after just 51 games. Things weren't the same after that, with Parker limited to just 24 minutes a game in his final season with the Bucks before getting a 2-year, $40 million contract to return home to Chicago. At this point, Parker's athletic ability just wasn't the same. His lateral quickness was non-existent, and his defensive woes only became amplified as his three-point shooting regressed and his spot in the Bulls' rotation was eventually taken away. It doesn't help that Parker's comments on defense lingered in the minds of Bulls fans throughout the season as he struggled on that side of the floor, but the hometown reunion lasted just 39 games before Parker was shipped off to the Wizards. Despite a better appearance in DC, Parker's once promising career as a potential number 1 scoring option was completely derailed, resigned to the far end of the bench in Sacramento after another brief stint in Atlanta. That brings us to Jabari's current team, the Boston Celtics, who swooped Parker up for cheap in the hopes they could resurrect his once promising career. With the team ravaged by injuries and in desperate need of a scoring punch on the bench, Parker was given a golden opportunity to prove he belongs in the NBA. So the question now becomes, what is he now? After playing just 27 minutes in 3 games for the Kings this past season, Jabari's minutes spiked up as soon as he signed with the Boston Celtics, playing 16 crucial minutes against the Warriors just 2 days after signing. It's actually a very wild and telling situation to see a player go from a team that had virtually no use for him to one that needed him to produce in any way as soon as he stepped foot in the building. In his 10 regular season games at Boston, it became clear that Parker's talent as a scorer still hadn't left his game, but we actually saw Brad Stevens feature Jabari more prominently as a small ball 5 than we've ever seen him play. And while this meant less work from Jabari working with the ball in his hands from the perimeter, what we did see was more pick and roll actions with Jabari working as the roller into the post, like with this side pick and roll against the Bulls that Jabari finished with a sweet under the rim layup. I also like how he's used in this ball screen from Marcus Smart during Boston's playoff series with the Nets. It's just a simple slip screen from Parker, but what I like here is how smoothly Parker turns his hips with the intent to drive hard to the rim, leaving Blake Griffin a step behind as he takes Parker down with a hard foul. We've also seen Parker utilized in the pick and pop action, like in this clip here against the New York Knicks. Jabari pops out near the elbow with plenty of space and uses a sharp crossover cut into the drive before dealing out a hesitation move that reminded me of Parker's college days. The last offensive clip I want to highlight is what Jabari brings as a post-scoring threat. This is in his debut against the Warriors, and we see Parker post himself up at the high post against Kevon Looney, who is a more traditional 5. We see Parker's craftiness as an interior scorer at work through 2 crucial pump fakes. The first one gets Looney to hesitate out of his stance, giving Parker time to put the ball on the floor, and the second gets Looney up in the air, which gives Parker space for his fadeaway baseline jumper. It's as smooth as can be, and a great example of what Parker can do when put up against bigger and stronger interior opponents. While Jabari was picked up for his offensive scoring ability, we also have to look at what he provided on the defensive end as well. Though nothing special, he actually provided pretty commendable on-ball defensive effort, and even finished with a 0.4 defensive box plus minus, which essentially equates to average league play. And I think a good way to analyze Parker's defensive impact would be to look at the extended minutes he had in Boston's first-round series against the Brooklyn Nets, specifically his matchups with Kevin Durant. Now, I know it's probably a bit unfair to look exclusively at his matchup against one of the greatest pure scoring threats the league has ever seen, but when watching all 4 minutes and 49 seconds of their matchup together in 4 games, I actually saw a bit of a microcosm of Parker's defensive strengths and weaknesses just through that matchup alone. For instance, I saw a lot of positives in Parker's on-ball effort through his matchups with KD, and this one in Game 1 of the series is probably the best example of it. I love how Parker keeps his hand up to contest the whole way, but the most impressive part is how Parker turns the hips on the Durant drive and uses his body to halt that drive, giving him time to swipe at the ball and force the turnover. I also like his effort in this Game 4 clip. He once again keeps the hands up to at least have a shot at contesting Durant, but KD uses a really nice hard swipe to create space for his baseline jumper. The thing is, Parker actually recovers from the swipe enough to contest it anyway, but at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do against a shooter as good as KD. While the on-ball play looked good, a lot of the ugly defensive play that Parker's gained a reputation for was on full display with his off-ball defense. This clip in Game 1 was particularly egregious. Parker gets beat bad on this corner backdoor cut, with his eyes glued to Blake Griffin handling the ball as Durant cuts into a completely open paint. I think Parker is expecting a handoff here and just totally misreads it. Here's another clip that was from Game 4. Parker gives a little too much space to Durant off the ball, and when KD receives it, Parker commits into setting his feet and defending the perimeter too hard, leaving Durant to just blow right by him into a huge dunk. So with all of this in mind, it's time to finally ask the big question. Is Jabari Parker still an NBA player? Honestly, I believe so. While not nearly the same super athlete he once was, Jabari has transitioned from a small forward with power forward strength to a power forward with the craftiness and size to effectively play at center. And honestly, it's not a bad fit for him. He's still a defensive liability despite some improved effort, but the interior scoring ability is still there, and if he can get back to a respectable mid-range clip, that's pretty big for him. He has the opportunity to be a solid bench forward for a Celtics team lacking in depth at that position, and we may even see a little more small ball 5 for Parker as well. For 15 to 20 minutes a game, I think Parker's a fine score-first forward that can give a team's bench a respectable boost in offensive production. Thanks for watching another video. Tell me your thoughts on Jabari Parker in the comments below. Do you think he's got anything left? Do you think he's washed up? What do you think the future holds for him? Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.